I also appreciate both the Arbor Elf. So it looks like Curtis is, other than rearranging the dice in a most
People
OCD
are
fashion,
very concerned with that tonight. I've seen a few people sit down and mess with the dice.
it seems like Curtis is keeping his 7, and I think Levi is going down to 6. So we will.
Oh, he's playing control. He'll come back.
Yeah, he'll play a couple cantrips and he'll be fine.
All right. Looks like we have a Thoughtseize though in Curtis's hand, so he might be able to just straight up grab a Jace at the beginning of the game with that. I would kind of like to see a Jace hit the table, though, to be honest, since we haven't seen one.
I would like to see a Jace hit the table, but at the same time, I would also love to see Death Shadow run Jace into the ground.
Yes.
Mostly because it would feel so good for my argument that Jace is not as important of an unban as Bloodbraid Elf, which, from everything that I have seen and read this past week, Jace hasn't looked nearly as good as Bloodbraid Elf. So we'll see. Curtis leading on a Bloodstained Mire, pretty old Bloodstained Mire, and a Mishra's Bauble, which is a pretty much exclusively Death Shadow card now.
Yes. It's kind of funny to think that not that long ago, that was a $40 card, I think, was its peak? Now it's like a $5 card? Yeah,
it dropped real hard. Not only did people stop playing this specific variety of Death Shadow, Grixis Death Shadow on the rise really kind of pushed people off. Whoop, there's Jace.
Got him.
Ooh, got him. But I was he's definitely taking the supreme verdict there.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense.
I don't think he cares about the Jace. I'm pretty sure that the Jace at this point is pretty inconsequential. But going back to Mishra's Bauble, super interesting card, weird effect. You look, not even don't do anything. You just look at it, and then you get to draw a card on the next upkeep. It's you could call it a cold snap mechanic. There's a few cards in that set that did that. Draw on the next upkeep. It's definitely something that Wizards is not going back to, nor have they ever gone back to, because it is just wonky, and it's also weird from a judge's perspective, because it's something that isn't technically missable. So there have been a number of times that I've seen a game get rewound to get the Mishra's Bauble draw, which is super weird. But I've also seen people miss it and then just forget about it and ignore it. So I guess it just depends on who's playing.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't realize stuff until way later in the game, and it's really hard to go back through and see exactly what happened. So Cold Snap was kind of a weird place where there was stuff that we're probably not going to see again, like Panglacial Worm.
Yeah.
When you're searching your library, you're allowed to cast Panglacial Worm from your library, and that's a weird thing. I used to run those in my Tooth and Nail deck, just one for an extra big creature because it's a 9/5 trampler.
I believe that's what we call putting something in your deck for shiggles.
Yes. Shiggles is a good way to put that on camera.
I would argue it's the best way to put it on camera.
It is the best way.
So I believe Curtis is actually down to 11. Yes, Ghosty Hosty. You're
Correct.
A little behind us, but yes, that is the creature you can cast while searching.
And it is a lot of fun.
Pesky stream delay.
I quit playing it because of things like Jund. You know, it's too easy. It's like, okay, Maelstrom Pulse, or there was more people were playing Dismember back then. Mm-hmm. There were just too many ways to terminate. Too many things killed it. Path, you know, it was just too easy to die for such a huge mana cost creature.
So one thing that we kind of glossed over as the game is going. I gotta keep on track of these life totals because Death Shadow gets down in a real hurry. Curtis is going to be going all the way to 7 here, so those Death Shadows are now going to be 6 sixes, which is quite sufficient for killing a pesky Jeskai player.
The most ridiculous turn 1 I've ever seen personally across the table was Russell Morehouse got down to, I want to say 11 on turn 1.
I've seen it.
Because he knows against me that he can just go for it. I'm not going to kill him unless it's with 9 mana for a Tooth and Nail.
So, Death Shadow coming across. We did kind of miss. There was a Field of Ruin from Levi. His first 3 lands were Basic Plains, Field of Ruin, which is not where you want to be as a blue player, and definitely not where you want to be when already staring down a 1-mana beat stick.
Yikes.
So, looks like Curtis is content to just drop him to 8. It's almost expecting an aggressive fetch shock there to try to push Levi down even further. But he might be concerned about bolts from Levi's deck. I don't know how concerned he's going to be, but we'll see how conservative he is with this fetch. Conservative. Very conservative. That's the answer to that question. And a Grimflayer.
And the Mana Leak.
And the Mana Leak indeed. Now, the 4-color Traverse Shadow. Most people you see nowadays are running 5-color. They run the full, it's Jund with a blue splash in the main, and then normally they have a Godless Shrine and some white cards in the board, which the deck has seen a pretty large spike in popularity recently, and there are a lot of pro players and like high notoriety players that play the deck and enjoy the deck. I personally played it for a while, and I was always more a fan of just either straight Jund or running the Grixis. I think Grixis control is just better. Or Grixis Death Shadow. Just the... Oop, and
we got the scoop.
And that's the game. And Jeskai goes down. That Abrupt Decay out of Curtis was pretty solid, I would say. The fact that it can't be countered is really good in these control matchups, obviously. So, going into the sideboard, so I'm not 100% sure what Levi's list looks like, other than we know the fact that he has Jaces, and we know that he's on Jeskai, even though he only showed blue and white that game. It's possible that Curtis sideboards thinking he's up against blue-white control. I'm not sure if he actually knows Levi is on Jeskai.
He may not.
So this could be interesting to see if Curtis sideboards based on thinking it's blue-white control, and then maybe the red will get him this game. We'll see. As far as things that Curtis brings in, I imagine he probably brings in Ranger of Eos. Just to tutor up more Death Shadows, Death Shadows specifically. Pretty much any card that he can bring in from his board that can generate just extra value. Lingering Souls is probably a play here. Doesn't look great in the face of Supreme Verdict, but there are a lot of times when you can just stick Lingering Souls, flashback Lingering Souls, and just ride Spirit Tokens all the way to victory.
Yeah. Even if you have to just make 2 and then wait and make him play the Supreme Verdict.
Mm-hmm. Helps you rebuild real fast.
Yeah. And sometimes small flyers just win.
Yeah. It's very telling that you can make the argument that the best creature in Legacy is Delver of Secrets, which, on face value is a very unassuming card. But the power of the Delver decks in pretty much every format that it's legal in is a little ridiculous. maybe Fulminator Mages out of the Traverse Shadow deck. I don't know how specifically his sideboard is constructed. I know I'm more familiar with the 5-color list just because those have been what's more common lately. So him just being on straight 4-color, he could have Fulminator Mages. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure he actually cares about Colonnade, because he does have Fatal Pushes, and he does have some number of Terminates, and he probably has access to either Dismember or Dreadbore or both. So I don't know if he actually cares that Colonnade exists. I'm also not sure that any of these games are going to make it there. Leyline from Levi.
I'd say it's a reasonable thought that he has it in his sideboard, but I don't know how good it is in this matchup. I'm not sure. There's definitely a possibility that he has it, but I don't know how many sideboard slots he would want to dedicate to Leyline. Because for some, like, I personally have Leyline of Sanctity in my sideboard for that exact reason, for the hand hate. Mm-hmm. But whenever you're playing a combo deck, especially one that is technically a 1-card combo, but I have a lot of moving pieces to get it going, I don't want them to disrupt my hand. Whereas playing Jeskai Control, it's probably not typically as big of a deal if you lose that 1 card.
I also think I'm not sure how many slots he would dedicate to that. The biggest problem with the ley lines, specifically the 2 ley lines that see the most play, Leyline of Sanctity and Leyline of the Void, they're really bad as singletons.
Yes.
There's you pretty much I would say the only numbers you're going to be running are 3s and 4s. That is a card Levi had just played that I definitely expected, but forgot to mention, which is Rest in Peace. He probably sided out some number of Snapcaster Mages and or Logic Knots to bring in Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace is a card that anyone that's playing a deck that runs white in Modern that does not directly use the graveyard itself, you definitely have Rest in Peace.
Yes.
There are even decks that will splash white for Rest in Peace. There are a lot of the green-white, or the green-black splash of white, not quite actual Abzan decks, that are pretty much splashing white just for 3 cards. Lingering Souls, Stony Silence, and then the occasional Rest in Peace.
Yes, which are some of the best cards at doing what they do.
White, for whatever reason, they decided that white is the card of hosing other people's having fun.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Welcome to white, the color of sweet sideboard tech.
Yeah. Now, interesting thing from Levi is he has a slight non-bow going, because he just played a Search for Azcanta after the Rest in Peace. So that is a Search for Azcanta that will for always and ever be a Search for Azcanta. That will never flip. There is a 0% chance of it ever flipping. And, well, I guess not a 0% chance. If Curtis thinks it's important enough to Abrupt Decay,
yes,
Rest in Peace, he might get there. But I think with the white splash and bringing in Ranger of Eos, I don't think you actually necessarily need your graveyard. I believe this will be Lingering Souls here. Oh, nope, Liliana. Okay, I was wrong. Lily on an empty board feels okay. You discard Nihil Spellbomb. Flavor-wise, as if the lands he ditches cease to exist. Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much. Those poor Verdant Catacombs and Bloodstained Mires. They were so young. They knew not what hit them.
Liliana is a card that we don't see as much anymore.
We got a Jace sighting.
So now we've got the Liliana has definitely dropped, but she used to be over 100. So we've got the old favorite versus the new favorite.
Lilianas are still sitting at about 90 apiece.
But they're not over 100.
They're not quite
They're
over
not
100.
Jace high.
They're not quite over 100, but they are ridiculous. If you had to pick one, who would you pick? On this board, do you think Jace the Mind Sculptor wins, or does Liliana of the Veil win? I know who I know who I'm going with. For sure.
At the risk of sounding stupid, because I do not watch as much Magic coverage or anything, but I would think Jace.
Yeah,
because he gets you. Lily makes you discard, yes, but you get to choose what you discard. And with control, you're going to be drawing. With Jace specifically, you're going to be drawing. Yeah. You're going to set up your draws with the brainstorm. So it just feels so much better to me.
The fact that you get to brainstorm every turn, and then you also have search for Azcanta. So if you really want to start digging, you can brainstorm, put back a card that you want, followed underneath a card that you don't want, and then bin the card that you don't want, pull back the card that you want on your draw step. It's just Jace value is going to get kind of ridiculous. That said, the Inquisition there from Curtis, Inquisition plus Liliana might be enough to fight through, and if he can get the Liliana to ultimate, it's going to be interesting.
He can, yeah, exactly. That I was just going to say, Cryptic Command is the answer here to Liliana. If she gets to ulting range, we can always just bounce that back to his hand. It also the piles would be interesting there.
Yeah, the piles would definitely be interesting. I imagine the Jace and the Rested piece probably go in separate piles. I almost think you probably do 2 land, 2 enchantments, 2 land, 1 Jace. So I would probably go specifically both the white sources with both the white sources together, because he only has 1 white dual and the basic planes. So those go together, and then the 2 red sources go together. And then depending on which land type you value more highly, putting the enchantments with the lesser desired lands. Because you imagine he's going to want to keep his Jace.
Yes, he's definitely going to want to keep his Jace.
So, depends on what you think. I would imagine white's probably the higher priority, just due to the fact that Lightning Bolt does not match up well against late game Tarmogoyfs and Death Shadows, but Path to Exile always will.
Yes.
So I imagine you probably go white sources with the enchantments and red sources with the Jace, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that seems very reasonable. If it wasn't for the Rest in Peace, I'm going to say you could basically throw Jace in one pile and everything else in the other.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe Jace with 1 land.
Honestly, there's a question of just putting Jace in a pile on its own. It depends. If you get to the point, I definitely think if you get to the point where the Liliana's ultimating, you want to get more value out of it than just getting rid of the Jace, because he probably has access to, especially post board, he probably has Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah.
And any creature that sticks around for very long, like if this Death Shadow survives this turn and gets any bigger, it might force Levi to use the Cryptic Command just to tap down the Death Shadow. And even if he taps down Death Shadow, bounces Lily just comes back and starts over again.
Yes.
So it's interesting. I'm not sure I would want to be in the Jeskai control seat right now. There's a lot of tough decisions that he's going to have to make. Starting with, okay, so he let the Lingering Soldier evolve. Does not seem to be worried about the spirit tokens. and Curtis did not take up the Liliana. That's interesting. Cryptic Command, modes, bounce, draw, and Curtis had Tarfire.
Going old school for
Going old school.
for the Jund colors there.
I guess in the 4-color shadow you could, in theory, run Mana Tide. Just for the tilt factor.
I have always kind of wanted to play Mana Tide, even not. I'm like you. I'm just not a huge white player typically, but it would be funny to throw down. I love playing cards that people either don't really see or they have to read.
The Supreme Verdict there cleans up Curtis's board. The fact that he wasn't willing to counter the Lingering Souls, because I feel like if he didn't have access to the Supreme Verdict right there, he probably counters Lingering Souls and then bounces the Lily, and then he's just dealing with the one Death Shadow.
Yes,
It's what I would think. The Lily coming back down is interesting. It'll remain to be seen if Levi can pressure it this time. Like, because when Lily was down before, having the Cryptic in hand as the answer, plus having it stare off against Jace was really valuable. Now it looks like Levi's just playing off the top of his deck, which Search for Akanta helps, but it still means he has to find a string of answers. Yeah, so Curtis is just going to go for the uptick. It's going to be every turn at this point. Hey, you drew a card, uptick the Lily. Draw another card, uptick the Lily.
the saddest Snapcaster.
Oh yeah, that's what we call an ambush viper. A strictly worse ambush viper.
Yeah. I like Ambush Viper. I played it back in Standard.
Oh yeah.
And I got to kill a Sun Titan
Woo!
with it. I was playing against Caleb Davis, and
That's
he
what
was
you
playing
call-
Solar Flare.
That's what you call value.
Yes.
That's when your 2 mana answers their 6 mana, and they feel bad about it. That's what you call value.
He felt bad. He just sat for a minute and looked at it, and it's like, really?
I think the most fun deck I remember playing in Standard. Recently, I played, before it was banned, I played Teamer Aetherworks Marvel, which was a stupidly absurd deck. And I'm actually very glad that they banned it, because it deserved to die in a fire. But I feel like the most fun deck I ever played, I brewed in Innistrad block, Return to Ravnica Standard. I brewed a green-black +1/+1 counters deck, where I was running Golgari Grave Troll,
Played him.
Lotleth Troll, Drag Manglers,
Yes.
and then also my favorite part of the deck was increasing savagery. Remember that card?
Yes.
Is?
Oh, yeah. I love that card.
That card was hilarious with Golgari Grave Troll. Oh, I forgot the most important creature in that whole deck. Predator Ooze.
I loved Predator Ooze. I played a deck.
Predator Ooze is hilarious.
Back in the day, I played a deck with Primordial Hydra, which I wanted so badly to be good, even though it's not. I played Primordial Hydra, Predator Ooze, Scavenging Ooze, and Corpsejack Menace.
Yep.
To add the extra counters, along with obviously increasing savagery.
I meant Corpsejack Menace and not Troll. Yeah.
Yeah, that card was pretty wild back then. Basically, with Primordial Hydra, you play it and they either kill it or you win. I mean, especially with a Corpsejack out, it gets ridiculous really, really fast.
Now, we've gotten into an interesting portion of the game where
Nothing's happening.
absolutely nothing's happening. Curtis is just going to keep ticking up this Lily. Levi is going to draw some stuff, and whoop, there's a Celestial Colonnade. Nothing is no longer happening. Double negative.
And I agree that is funny. The Goyf jump blocking a Snapcaster and dying is pretty nice.
The rest in peace with the Goyf is just The ultimate feels bad. I'm really off my game on keeping up with these life totals. I apologize.
Shame on you.
All the shame. I am shame. Colonnade, getting into the red zone, taking out the Liliana. Now, the question is, what happens first? Curtis draws a threat that matters, or he draws an answer to Colonnade. Or Levi draws an answer to Curtis's answer.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. That Field of Ruin's going to be interesting if he decides to use it. Yeah, this... I agree. The life totals right now are not super relevant. They are relevant for one reason and one reason only, and that is because Death Shadow, I feel, is still a fairly live card for Curtis.
Yes.
Speaking
and then
of which...
he casts one.
So that is a 1-mana 5/5, which...
Seems good.
Kind of unassuming, but if Levi swings that Colonnade again, that is now a 1-mana 9/9 that just got packed.
Got him.
And my commentary means nothing. Yeah, two turn clock plus drawing tidy removal. This game is likely over for Curtis, and I do believe we're going to go to game 3. Yeah, Fatal Push. Fatal Push was the out. Unsure whether or not Curtis has a reliable number of dismembers or terminates that he also could have hit. I imagine he has a non-zero number of both.
Yes.
Probably more terminates than dismembers. So
I agree, Ghosty, that was a very good game.
Definitely shows the back and forth of the two decks. The control deck did what it wanted. The 4-color shadow deck did mostly what it wanted. Would have been a lot better if the one Traverse the Ulvenwald that he cast was for any value beyond get my basic swamp.
Yes.
But, live and learn.
Yeah, that's what, for me, these are the kind of games that Magic is all about. Even if I end up losing, I would rather play a fun back and forth game with my opponent and have a good time talking to them and stuff than win, but with an opponent who just stares at you the whole time or doesn't really do anything. And I've had all those types of games, and it's just miserable to set across from a miserable opponent. There's
a time and a place for stuff like that. If you're at a GP or a PTQ or something competitive REL or pro level, it would be interesting. That you can kind of allow because people there are trying to win.
Yes.
Super hard. But when F&Ms are for fun. Always have been, always will be. Even when you do win-a-box F&Ms, the fact of the matter is F&M is still supposed to be fun for the people that play in it. So, if the name of the game is fun, might as well enjoy it. Chat up your opponent.
And you can definitely do that.
Share some ideas.
Yes. And the meta is crazy diverse here at Four Horsemen. You are... I think the most anybody, at least recently, since obviously there was more Splinter Twin whenever it was legal, but in the last year or so, you come every week and people are playing different decks and doing different things, and you can't really say okay, I know I'm going to be facing a lot of Lantern tonight or a lot of Jund tonight. There's not going to be more than maybe 3 or 4 out of 20 maximum who are playing the same deck.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the player base here at Four Horsemen, it helps that a lot of people here have multiple decks or have access to multiple decks, whether it's borrow cards from a friend or maybe even sometimes rent cards. It's nice because you really see a diverse meta, and other than you do have your grinders that will play the same thing over and over again. Bobby Levdansky from last round. He tends to be more on the grinder train,
Yes.
where he will play the same deck over and over and over for 2-3 months.
But
at
he's a fun
time.
guy to play against.
Yeah.
And he's a good guy. He's enjoyable to sit across the table from. If there's other people that just play something different every week, I'm not sure who Mountaineers 29 is. To know
I've
if
been
I
trying to figure that
hate playing against them or not.
out. And Ghosty Hosty, as for sideboard, I would imagine, as far as what Curtis changed, knowing that he's against Jeskai now, Enchantment Hate for the Rest in Pieces is probably a good bet if he didn't already have it in his deck.
Yes.
And then I would imagine if Ranger of Eos wasn't already in his deck, it will be now. Because Ranger of Eos is one way that Curtis can kind of grind through not having a graveyard. Since Ranger of Eos just tutors for basically, Ranger of Eos in the Death Shadow deck reads tutor up to Death Shadow. Put
Yes.
them in your hand. Which is pretty good for 4 mana.
Yes. Very good. Aha. Yeah. Paul Mills is absolutely the first person that comes to mind when I'm like, man, you know who I hate playing against because they won't talk to me or have a good game? It's Paul Mills.
All in good fun.
For the people who don't know, complete joke. Paul is one of my favorite people to play against. So thumbs up, Paul.
And thank you for joining us in chat. Makes it a lot more fun for us when we have other people to talk to.
So we don't just have to talk to each other. Awkward silence.
Chirp, 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 chirp.
Actually, we both have agreed that we could talk all night, I think, without any issue.
I think our in between rounds banter and talking about different magic related things has definitely proven that we can be long winded. So we can try to rein that in a little bit. This game started off pretty much exactly how Curtis wanted it to. Played a fetch to shock land, shocked the shock land, Thoughtseize. Already down to 15, turn 1. Levi hasn't done anything. He leads on
2 colonnades.
back-to-back colonnades, which is fine.
We'll see how long the game goes, really. I mean, they're obviously not very good until many turns into the game.
Yeah. Curtis fetching both of those, so going to 13 initially.
What is it with people in the dice?
I'm not
Goodness
sure.
gracious.
I'm not sure who's up there messing with the dice, but I think it might be Ethan. I think Ethan might be coming over and just since he's there, might as well.
It's like, hey, I'm here. My hands are empty. Better touch these dice.
Yep. I do find it interesting that Curtis immediately fetched double basic, and there are Fulminator mages, so he does have Fulminators in his list, just like you were guessing, Ghosty Hosty. Probably going to... I imagine he's probably going to try to get some damage in, swing it once before he tries to blow up one of the colonnades. There he goes. Get in there, buddy. I do find it interesting that Curtis immediately fetched both basics, though.
Yes.
Considering that Levi is running Path to Exile. That's interesting to me, and I'm not sure if it's technically correct. I will gladly defer to Curtis's judgment in this one, just due to the fact that he plays the deck a lot, and he plays a lot of these green-black mid-range decks. He's a very old Jund player. So I will cede to his expertise in here, but from where I sit, I'm not sure it's correct to fetch double basic there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some reason to grab the basics, and I just have no idea what it might be.
Now, I do really like getting the Fulminator in there for a couple turns. I think immediately blowing up a land doesn't really have value, because all he's going to do is he's going to shut down a colonnade and put Levi behind one turn on land drops. But I'm not sure I'm not sure that matters as much as trying to get some damage in while you can.
Yes. I would guess that he probably didn't have them in the 60.
Probably not.
Because that's going to... I mean, whenever you're running 4-color, there's a lot of other stuff that you really need, and you don't need Fulminator Mage in every matchup.
I believe I just saw Lightning Helix, so I'm going to assume that they just haven't updated the dice. There is Search for Escanter from Levi, and Paul, this one time we can defer to Curtis. Just the once.
At least the basics he's playing are those nice unhinged.
Oh yes, I think we have covered the love for the unhinged lands by now. For those of you that missed our earlier rantings and ravings, unhinged confirmed greater than unstable, if for no other reason than the unstable lands need an actual magic frame and not what it has. Or doesn't have.
Was there an Abrupt Decay?
He just Abrupt Decayed the Search for Escanta.
In the well, I meant in the last game. In game
we
2,
didn't see it. I don't figure Curtis would side them out, because those are the Abrupt Decays. I figure at least one would be in the main and probably an extra one in the side. So I don't think he would side them out. The fact that it's uncounterable
against a control deck that's
against
playing counter spells.
Yeah, against the control deck. The worst case scenario, you can snipe a Snapcaster with it. But especially if Levi was just on blue-white, having him be on Rest in Peace is actually much greater chance. So, yeah, the game 1 he didn't see any of the enchantments. But I think it's pretty safe to assume. I think it's pretty safe for Curtis to assume that he would see enchantments out of Levi's deck. Maybe not necessarily Search for Escanta, but there was a very high chance of seeing Rest in Peace as a possible card.
And sometimes, as we saw before, you just need to get that pesky Snapcaster out of the way.
Yep.
And now we're going to see him hit a Colonnade.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty safe. The ever so dangerous ambush Snapcaster blocking the intrepid Fulminator Mage.
I like your words, Dennis.
I gotta get fancy with it sometimes. And there is a Death Shadow from Curtis. We do have a bit of a race on our hands, but I'm not sure it's a race that that Levi necessarily wants to be in. I definitely think Snapcaster versus Death Shadow, two spirit tokens with Lingering Soul still in the graveyard. I think that favors Curtis, even though he's already down 6 life. Levi also can't attack this turn unless he has something to remove the Death Shadow. Which basically has to be Path or Supreme Verdict. He just can't attack into the Death Shadow.
Yes, our race turned into a Yugo versus a Ferrari.
Yeah. It's a good way to look at it. I was going to say like a Volkswagen Beetle.
Curtis is at 6.
Curtis is at 6, not
Yes.
8. Okay.
We can speak, not read.
Sometimes we can't do either.
Very true, very true.
Yeah, we have corrected. Curtis
The failed
Curtis
Inquisition.
is at 6.
I love that so much. So many times have I had a clutch of 6 or 7 cards in my hand and flash it to an Inquisition having all lands and 4 to 9 drops. Feels good.
Feels good. So Cryptic Command coming in, tapping the team, and drawing Levi a card. Now, if you're Curtis, do you flash back the Lingering Souls?
Looks like it.
I mean, he's doing it, but I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's right.
I'm not sure if it's right either.
But we're also not sure what he has in his hand.
Yeah, we don't know what's in his hand, and realistically, another Death Shadow. That'll play. So he now has 2 7/7s and 2 Flying Spirits. I would say that's a pretty decent place to.
Are we going to see a Supreme Verdict?
I think Levi is on Verdict or Bust. He has enough mana. He can string 1 mana cantrip into 1 mana cantrip into Verdict, but I think he has to hit a Verdict this turn. If he doesn't get Verdict, at the very least, the Snapcaster is going way under the bus.
Yes.
Shocking.
Okay.
Let's see what he's got. For him to
Thinks
shock
his round?
there. Path. Okay, so shock.
So we
so
can
that
path
you
and
can
then activate
colonnade.
Colonnade.
And I believe that's Xaxes? Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, and there's the hand. There's
wow,
the hand.
That was a close one.
That was well played from Levi, I would say. That there was a large portion of that game that looked like it was Curtis's to lose. And game 2 and 3 really were super close.
Okay, so he did bring in, it looks like, the Lingering Souls and the Fulminator Mage.
And the Fulminators. And
Spellbomb. I'm not sure what the card under the Spellbomb is.
I believe that's a second Spellbomb.
Yeah, we got all...
And a Grim Lavamancer.
Grim Lavamancer.
He brought in Grim Lavamancer.
Okay, that seems weird.
That does seem weird.
Not 100% on that. But as we
I
heard
guess,
from Paul, maybe we shouldn't trust Curtis.
I guess Grim Lavamancer provides him with reach.
It does.
If the board stalls, if he can manage to stick a Grim Lavamancer, he can turn his graveyard that might not at that point be doing much into just shocking his opponent over and over again. I can see where he's going with that. I'm still not sure I agree.
Yeah, I'm not
with
100% on that play.
Especially considering that I don't know if I saw Ranger Vios, which I know he at least at one point had in his 75 and should.
Yeah.
It's just low. If you're playing the Traverse Shadow, it's a low opportunity cost card to throw in your deck that can just swing games. It's almost like having Collected Company.
Yes.
You can go from no board to massive board in a matter of a turn.
With a few mana.
Yeah. You basically you've got your 4 mana for the Ranger, and then you just play 2 Death Shadows, and all of a sudden you're not only back in the game, but you're probably favored at that point in most matchups. The Fulminator's coming in. I mean, we saw a little Fulminator that could, but it turns out it was a little Fulminator that couldn't quite get there.
Yes.
Which is a shame. Fulminator Mage, he did what he could. He tried so hard and got so far.
Yes.
But in the end, it wasn't
enough.
All right. So I believe, from what I can hear, it sounds like people are bustling about, and sounds like we might be pretty quickly into round 4. So we're gonna go down, see if we can get some pairing, see if we can get someone in here a little bit quicker than we have been. But we will be right back. Curtis, Ghosty Hosty, Curtis did not search for a basic off the path because he had already fetched the 2 basics out of his deck. That was the earlier play when he double fetched for both the basics to play the Fulminator Mage that we questioned. He didn't have any basics left because he only runs the Singleton Forest and the Singleton Swamp. Unfortunately, the Death Shadow decks, the mana base has to be pretty tight
and pretty greedy,
and very greedy, very greedy. But that's why we were questioning the double basic fetch. Had a feeling it was going to come up. Just had a feeling it was going to come up. So we will be back shortly with a round 4 match for you guys. Until then, we'll see you soon.